No, I will start now. I'm recording the first part, but the record is only for 15 minutes. I can record only for 15 minutes. So, خلاص, let's get started, and then I will send them the link. Okay. You know, the lesson today, it's not like it doesn't include new information. It is just like to analyze the idea of domains and kingdoms. So the objective of the lesson is to understand the process and the importance of critical evaluation of new data by scientific community, leading to new taxonomic groupings. So the idea is to make like evaluation of the new data from sciences, new data including the data about the DNA, about proteins, and the other biochemical structures, to help to put the living organism in new taxonomic groups. Taxonomic groups means classification group. The molecular phylogeny, we explained this term last lesson, which is analysis of structures of many different chemicals as well as the DNA to identify the interrelationships between groups of organisms. Did you get it? So we analyzing the structures, including some chemicals like the DNA or proteins, to identify the relationship between living organisms, between groups of living organisms. The evidence from biochemical analysis may support or conflict with morphological evidences. You remember in the last lesson we explained that the first way to classify living organism was based on the morphological evidences. They were looking for the similarities and the differences between living organisms. But the evidence that the scientists got from the biochemical analysis may support or conflict with the morphological evidences. If it supports, mean the organisms that we're grouping in the same group, they will remain in the same group. And if there will be a conflict, they should be separated. We can give an example for this, what happens with bacteria. According to the morphological species concept, all bacteria, all living organisms that are unicellular and don't have nucleus, they don't have membrane-bound organelles, they put them in the same group, and we call it group bacteria or group Monera. But after learning more about the biochemical analysis, after studying the DNA, they put the bacteria in two different groups, which is Archaea and Eubacteria. Okay, patterns in the DNA or RNA fragments are used in species identifications. Also explained in the last lesson that the scientists analyze the DNA or RNA fragments by studying the pattern in these fragments, like the VNTR, variable number tandem repeats. The scientists have been using this in identification of living organisms. Comparison between amino acid sequences of similar proteins also help to classify the living organisms. So what the biochemical analysis was based on analysis of the DNA, RNA fragments, or amino acid sequences. And depends on the similarities in these sequences or fragments, they put the living organisms in new taxonomic groups. Okay. Evidences of biochemical relationships. Now you understood what I mean by biochemical relationship. Biochemical relationship is to look for the similarities or relationship between living organisms based on Biochemical analysis. Biochemical analysis means analysis of chemical structure in the living organisms, like DNA, RNA, or protein amino acids. The scientists have studied gel electrophoresis to know the relationship between living organisms, and then they use also what we call comparative anatomy. Comparative anatomy is to compare anatomical structure of living organisms or closely related living organisms to put them in different taxonomic groups or in the same taxonomic groups. You know what is anatomy, right? Analysis of the internal bone structures or muscle structures of the living organism. Embryology, studying how the living organism develop from being an embryo to fetus to an adult living organism. Also, they compare the embryology of the living organism or the stage the living organism pass on during his embryonic development. And on this basis, they analyze and categorize the living organism. Number 4, blood analysis. Also, they look for blood grouping or the type of blood pigment. The organisms that have similar blood pigments, also they put them in the same taxonomic groups. Analysis of amino acid sequences. Also, scientists were looking for certain types of amino acids if they are repeated in the same pattern or the same type of amino acid repeated so many times in a group of living organism, they put this group of living organism in the same species or in the same taxonomic group. Not only species, taxonomic group, we mean general taxonomic group, not only species. Okay. Those evidences can bring some unlikely relationship to light. Like, for example, by studying the biochemical relationship, scientists put both of whale and hippo in the same group, in the same taxonomic group. So they share common ancestor. I think now you know what I mean by common ancestor, right? So they evolved from one common ancestor long time ago. Both of whale and hippo, although they are morphologically very different. And this is what's unlikely to happen when we use the biochemical analysis in identification of living organisms. Okay, evidence of amino acids analysis. Amino acid analysis, so they are looking for also the similarities of some patterns of amino acids. This shows the relationship within higher groups, okay, such as phylum. Okay, higher groups means it's not a species or genus, it's a higher order like phylum. Analysis of fibrinogen. You know, fibrinogen is a protein that is used in formation of fibrin or formation of clot. Reveal how closely the different mammalian groups are related to single amino acid changes. Okay, and this is used to plot the relationship. So a scientist were looking for the fibrinogen, analysis of fibrinogen. Okay, they found that the amount of fibrinogen is similar in the organisms that are closely related. Okay, and they are different in the organisms that are far related. Okay, this because here we are saying what is the point here? Amino acid analysis. They look for, they analyze the amino acid that form a protein like a fibrinogen to see if there is any relationship between living organism or not. And it helps to classify the living organism based on the phylum or higher groups, not species or genus. يعني amino acid analysis doesn't help to put two living organisms in the same species or same genus, but it might help in higher groups like phylum. Okay. Um, Phylogenetic trees. What is a phylogenetic tree? A phylogenetic tree is a model used to show the relationship between different groups of organisms. Okay, a model used to show the relationships between different groups of organisms. Um, you can see this tree. We call it phylogenetic tree. So if you can see two organisms on the same line, this means that they are very closely related to each other. Like if I can't see well this part. um, because I want to magnify to zoom in. Okay, if you look here at those organisms, you can see here, for example, this organism which is here at this point. Okay, and that one. These two organisms, they are on the same ancestral line. You describe them like this. They are on the same ancestral line. Okay, and then also these two organisms are on the same ancestral line, and those two share a common ancestor. Okay. If you are asked in the exam, for example, what are the most closely related organisms? So I can put, for example, these two organisms because I can say they separated recently. They share so many common ancestors. They share this ancestor 1, 2, 3, and 4. They share 4 common ancestors. So they are very closely related to each other. So by chemical analysis, we need to put them very close to each other in the taxonomic group. While مثلا mollusk and the platyhelminthes, these two organisms, they share far or farther away ancestor. This is the ancestor that they share. Did you get the point? So by using the model or analyzing the model, you can show the relationship between different groups of the living organisms. Okay, yes. First two, yes. First two, no. You mean Porphyra and Cnidaria? They are not related. They are related, but they don't share the ancestor. The ancestor is different. They don't share the. Of course, all living organisms are related. All the organisms are related. But I mean, do they share recent ancestor or ancient ancestor? I will say ancient ancestor, not the recent ones. Not like mollusk and annelide. Mollusk and annelide share a recent ancestor. But those one, because this is the main ancestor that gives the ancestor which should be here. I can draw it like this. There should be an ancestor here, an ancestral line. Okay, and then Cnidaria come to one line, and there are many ancestors. Then they give Porphyra. So Porphyra and Cnidaria, they don't share a recent ancestor. But what you should know that the phylogenetic trees depended mainly on the morphology of the living organism. Okay, it didn't depend basically on the embryonic structure or chemical structure. The